heart rate variability because it's an important thing. So your brain is trying to control and predict everything that's taking place in your life, because stress is actually created when you can't predict something, you can't control something, or you have the perception that something's going to get worse. Okay, so you switch on that primitive nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system, and as you shift your attention from one person to another thing, to another place, to another problem, every one of those different elements has a neurological network in your brain. So the arousal of the hormones to say, pay attention, there's danger. As you start shifting your attention to each one of these elements that have neurological networks in your brain starts firing very incoherently. And in fact, you could actually, by thinking about your problems, turn on the stress response just by thought alone. And that's what most people do. So now there you are, you're sitting in traffic. The heart is pumping because it's trying to get blood to the extremities, because a primitive system is switching on, saying that there's a predator, there's danger. And the heart is beating against closed arteries. And the heart starts beating out of rhythm, it starts beating out of order, and it starts beating very incoherently. So when you have incoherence in the brain, and you have incoherence in the heart, when waves are incoherent, when they intersect with each other, they cancel each other out. And when they cancel each other out, that's less energy in the brain. If there's less energy in the brain, you're going to default to some of those reflexive systems. If energy is diminished in the heart, you're not going to trust. You're not going to be vulnerable. You're not going to want to commune. You're not going to want to connect. You're not going to want to feel grateful. It's not a time to feel any of those things. It's time to run, fight, and hide. Okay, so most people say, okay, well, I had a stressful day. I was stressed out the entire day. And at the end of the day, they turn on the TV and they relax. The important thing to realize is that if you're relying on something outside of you to change that emotional state, you'll become dependent on it. So is it possible then to begin to create more coherence in the brain? And the answer is yes, because when you're under the gun of those chemicals of survival, you're narrowing your focus on the cause. You hear something moving in the bushes, you freeze, and you narrow your focus. And it's that narrowing of focus that tends to be obsessive. When we're in stress, we overthink things, we overanalyze. That actually, we've discovered, makes the brain worse. And it actually makes the heart regulate more out of order. So then we said, okay, if the brain is narrowing its focus and it's becoming over-attentive, what if we teach it how to do something else? What if we teach it how to broaden its focus? And instead of focusing on something material or something known, just open up and focus on nothing. And the act of broadening the focus actually causes a person to stop thinking and doing and start sensing and feeling, is actually what starts to slow their brain waves down. The redundancy of shifting your attention from one person to another problem, to another thing, causes the brain to fire like a lightning storm in the clouds very incoherently. So as you start to open your awareness and sense nothing, we've seen this thousands of times, those different networks that are firing out of order start to synchronize. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain, and the brain becomes more orderly. It starts to become more coherent. If you could learn how to rest your attention in your heart, and where you place your attention is where you place your energy, regulate your breath, start slowing your breathing down, even if you did it for 1 minute, you could actually begin to change your brain waves, and you could actually cause your heart to start functioning in more regulation and more order. If you said, okay, I'm going to work with my body, and I'm going to start breathing, and I'm going to start feeling emotions that I do want to feel. Yes, it may take you a few minutes to get there, but if you keep practicing it over and over again, the heart starts producing a very profound signal. It starts to produce an external magnetic field. It's measurable. So now you have a coherent brain, which means you can get very intentional. And you have a coherent heart, which means you can feel the emotions of your future before it happens. Somehow you have this broadcasting of this Wi-Fi signal. And the brain tends to be electrical in nature, so it sends out an electrical charge into the field. The heart is the magnetic charge. It's what draws things to us. It's the magnetic field. And now you actually, by changing the way you think and the way you feel, you're changing the signal in the field, then if you're able to maintain that state for an extended period of time, I say something magical is going to happen in your life. Something unusual, some unknown experience is going to occur. If you keep thinking the same way and feeling the same way, your life should stay the same. So we do 1-minute practices, we do 5-minute practices, we do 30-minute practices. We want to get so good at doing it with our eyes closed that we can do it with our eyes open.
Yeah, no,
A different state. If you're altered in that state and you say something, you do something, you write the email, you send the text, you'll always regret it. You'll always say, I should have never said that. I should have never done that. We got to learn that we're in an altered state at that time. So there's only one of two choices. You either stay there the whole day and tell everybody that story, or you say, okay, let me take a moment. Remember that this is the experiment called life. Okay, let me practice getting relaxed in my heart. Let me slow the animal down. Let me practice that. Take a few minutes. Now, let me breathe. Let me get my state back. Let me change everything. Okay, let me remember who I am, who I want to be when I open my eyes, and let me practice that again. Now, even if you had to do that 10 times in one day, I would say it was a day worth living. I would say it was a day worth living. And when we do walking meditations, in our retreats, we're doing walking meditations so you can practice doing it with your eyes open.
Yes.
Like if you're going to be relaxed in your heart and awake in your brain, and you can do it with your eyes closed, okay, let's take it out for a test drive.
Yeah.
Let me open my eyes. Let me pay a little bit more attention to my inner world. Let me practice feeling this feeling. Let me practice feeling this way, and let my brain do what it does. Let me get defined. Let me change my physiology. Let me change my state. Let me walk as the healed person. Let me walk as the abundant person. Let me walk as if my prayers are answered. Let me walk in this state. If I keep practicing that over and over, it's going to become a habit, right?
Yeah.
And so we hit it as many ways as we can. We have at least 7 or 8 different breaths that we do because we see how they all work in the brain. We have all kinds of meditations. We have sitting meditations. We have standing and walking meditations. We have laying down meditations because we want you to be able to do it with your eyes open, with your eyes closed, standing, walking any way you can so that you don't default and return back to that person. Now, if you do default, you didn't fail. That's a program. You just went unconscious. And how many times do we have to forget until we stop forgetting and start remembering? That's the moment of change. No one cares how many times you fell off the bicycle. If you ride the bicycle now, you ride the bike. So it's the constant process every single day. And I think that sometimes we look for evidence in our life and it hasn't happened. And I think it's so important that we still show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where you're changing the most. And when you get to that point where you could care less if it happens or not, because you feel so happy, so grateful for who you are, get ready because your life is going to begin to change in magical ways. I'm so proud of our community, not because they do the work every day, not because they're trying to be good or please anybody. They do it because they don't want the magic to really end. The experiment is too good. They're going to continue to be a creator in their life. So then when they change the way they feel and the way they think and they start seeing evidence in their life, they're going to remember what they did inside of them to produce that outcome, and they're going to believe they're creator of their life and less of the victim of their life, and that's empowerment.
Yeah.
And you can't take that away from anybody. You can't tell me now you're too sick to do that. You can't tell me you're too old to do that. You can't tell me you had a horrible past, you're too out of shape. You can't even tell me that you never meditated before, because we have people that come, they know nothing, they get dragged by somebody, and they have the most profound experience because they're not expecting anything. And we have data that suggests that when you don't expect anything, you're going to have a profound moment. So everybody can do it. There's nobody that's so special to be excluded from this process. And we have had people that have had brutal pasts with abuse, with trauma. We've seen Navy SEALs and prisoners with horrible, horrible memories literally transform in 7 days. And I could say right now that you make the time every single day to decide who you're going to present to the world, and you get up as that person. You're going to fall a lot of times, but sooner or later, once you start to change, it's pretty hard to go back.
Yeah, I think we so easily forget that anything that we've
stress, I mean, that's the only way we could actually survive. We're part human, part animal, part divine. I mean, we have two things at work here. I think the biggest challenge for a lot of people, and 70% of the time, people are living in that state of survival, living in that state of stress. The more you understand what that actually does to you, the more you can make better choices on how long you actually do want to stay there. Here's an example. Many people who are changing a health condition in our work, they start to do the work, they start noticing I'm sleeping better, I have less pain, I got my appetite back, I feel like I have more energy. They start noticing these subtle subjective changes. They go to their doctor, and their scans still show that they have their health condition. So they're noticing a change, but they're not healed all the way. Now, they don't say it didn't work. They say, what is it about me that I still have to change in order to heal? What thought, what behavior, what emotion? So they're a work in progress, right? Many of those people discover that they have one really good hour of meditation where they feel connected, they feel like their heart is opening up, they feel like their brain is coherent, they feel really great, they don't want the moment to end, and then they spend 15 or 16 hours of their day back in a program, rushing around, back in their emotional states, responding and reacting. And they realize that how could 1 hour of an elevated state weigh against 15 or 16 hours of my response to everyone and everything in my life emotionally is derived from those familiar emotions of fear or anger or hatred or pain or suffering, whatever. Okay, so now this is where the practicum actually goes to the next level because they're no longer just sitting down and rehearsing who they want to be. They're actually rehearsing for their life. They're saying, okay, when I see that person, when I'm in that circumstance, I can't go unconscious and feel this emotion, and I can't go unconscious and say these things or act this way. How am I going to act? What would love do? What would greatness look like? They don't know. They read about it. They get more information, and they're building this model. And now all of a sudden, their response to people, to circumstances, to problems in their life are changing. That's because they're changing. Then they notice that their health condition starts to improve a little bit more. Now they don't say, how come my Alzheimer's or my Parkinson's or my ALS hasn't healed? They're saying, how much more can I open my heart in my day and feel this with my eyes open all day long? If I understand that if I live by these emotions, I'm signaling genes ahead of the environment. Ooh, I'm going to stay in this state because it's this emotional state that is actually going to heal me. So I got to remember this feeling. I got to remember this feeling. I got to remember this feeling. And now they're no longer trying to remember the feeling just for any other reason, but because they want to remember the feeling when they're with their eyes open. Now they're understanding that the more that they change, the more that their health changes. And you can have the best diet, and you could do the best exercise, and you could be really rigid in the food choices and vitamins and minerals, and keep your body chemically balanced and physically balanced. But if you're not emotionally balanced and you're constantly in that fight or flight system, stress is when your body's knocked out of homeostasis. The stress is when your brain and body are knocked out of balance. So you could have all those things working for you, but if you are living in fear or you're controlling and you're rigid and you're perfectionist and you're hard on yourself, it's going to make sense that that is going to have to change. I hated before because we have people that come, they know nothing, they get dragged by somebody, and they have the most profound experience because they're not expecting anything. And we have data that suggests that when you don't expect anything, you're going to have a profound moment. So everybody can do it. There's nobody that's so special to be excluded from this process. And we have had people that have had brutal pasts with abuse, with trauma. We've seen Navy SEALs and prisoners with horrible, horrible memories literally transform in 7 days. And I could say right now that you make the time every single day to decide who you're going to present to the world, and you get up as that person. You're going to fall a lot of times, but sooner or later, once you start to